to our island in Second Life called Transforming Assessment. Here we're looking at how we can set assessment tasks for students within the Second Life environment. Here we're inside our chemistry building, and we're going to look at some examples of a chemistry quiz inside Second Life. There are a number of tools that are available to us in Second Life. In this case we're going to look at quizHUD, or heads up display, for us to be able to set an assessment task for students within Second Life. This is a very useful tool for requiring students through their avatar to be able to identify three-dimensional objects and to touch components of those objects. When you're exploring our island, make sure you have a look at the instructions on the wall to let you know how to use the tools. And we have some floating text here that says for us to take a copy of this object sitting on the table. So we've identified the object on the table, and what we're going to do is to right-click that object. So after identifying the object, we right-click, our menu appears, and what we're going to do is to look for the option that says Take a Copy. When you take a copy of an object in Second Life, it puts that object into your inventory, and the inventory is the place where the items that you can use within Second Life, that's where they're stored. So what we now need to do is to find that object in our inventory. So we'll go over to our inventory. The easiest way to find objects in your inventory that you've just taken is to go to the recent objects. And you can see we've found the chemistry HUD object that we've just taken a copy of. If you do a lot of activity in Second Life, you might have a number of objects here, but usually this is the easiest way to find the most recent object that you've just taken a copy of. So we now need to wear that object so that we can use it. So in this case it's an HUD object, so we need to attach the HUD object, and the system is asking us where would we like that object to appear on the screen. So we'll have it appear at the top. So the object will soon appear within our Second Life screen. Then we need to close our inventory so that we can read the quizHUD screen that's appeared. So we now get a welcome message. This is where you could put some instructions for the students about what they need to do. So we could set some instructions about how students have to identify an object by touching it, or to identify components of an object by touching individual aspects of it. So since this is in the chemistry room, what we've done is constructed or resed some molecules in three-dimensional space, and this is what we'll use for the quizHUD question. So you can set some content in here as well, so you can get students to explore something, or you can have them start the quiz. So what we'll do is go to the quiz tab. So what we've done here is we've linked the questions in the quizHUD with the particular structures that we've drawn, and the student can open up the first question, and in this case as the question opens up, you'll see that it is asking the student to touch the ethanol molecule. So we've used rather simple questions here, but you could put much more complex ones in if you wished. Now of course we're using a chemistry example here, so we're using molecules, but this could be any three-dimensional object, any structure from any discipline area, and then we could use the quizHUD to get students to identify parts or components of that particular object. So in this case we'll identify the ethanol molecule, so we touch the ethanol molecule and then we get some feedback. And it looks like we've identified the correct molecule in this case, so the feedback that we get here is correct. You could put much more complex feedback if you wish. So we now move on to question 2. So as question 2 comes up, we can see that it's asking us to find the molecule, the methane molecule, and then to identify the hydrogen atom in that molecule. So we go down and we find our methane molecule, and it asked us to touch the hydrogen, but in this case let's touch the carbon atom and see what feedback we receive. So it's told me that I was incorrect. So what you could do here for the feedback is actually give feedback about the concept that's being asked here. We've just used a very simple example, but of course you can have a much more complex example which would have more extensive feedback associated with it. So in this particular case we only had 2 questions because we're just trying to illustrate the use of the quizHUD with a three-dimensional object. So the point of this question was really just to illustrate how you could use three-dimensional objects in this virtual world that we have and get students to identify components within those three-dimensional objects.